What's all the hubbub? Bub?
Bugs Bunny captured a certain spirit that the theater-going audiences of that era were probably ready for. He was feisty, he was determined, he was very effectual. He got things done. When Bugs was around, things happened. And you could pretty much trust that by the end of the 6 or 7 minutes, Bugs would triumph over the villain, and in a very satisfying way.
What's the big idea of rabbits being only white 2 cents?
Bugs Bunny was a winner. He definitely embodied the American spirit.
He's always been the coolest character in the scene, ever since his very first cartoons, even when he was, not really Bugs yet. And he always held the room, and he always was the guy who knew exactly what was going to happen and remained unruffled until he was acted upon. And then he would say, "This means war," and he would, go into his routine to get revenge.
San Bernardino. Of course you realize this means war.
He appealed to the adult crowds. Of course, now he's a cult following.
He was just an arrogant, flamboyant, smartass, if you will, kind of character. And audiences love that. They take to that.
As I've often said, I dream about being Bugs Bunny, but when I wake up, I look in the mirror, there's Daffy.
Bugs had a lot of energy and a lot of drive, but I think it's a combination of what we did and what Mel did that made it.
What do you think is the appeal of Bugs Bunny? What makes people really love Bugs Bunny?
I wish I knew. I wish I really knew, because I'd do it again.
I think really all the characters, even Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck, Porky Pig, they all really started as one-shots. They didn't set out to design and create what we think of as Bugs Bunny today. They created funny cartoons, and this one was a rabbit hunt picture, and it would have Bugs and Hunter in it, and that kind of thing. And they would hit upon characters and certain personalities that they really liked. They said, "That's a funny idea. We had a lot of fun with that cartoon, got a great reaction to it. Let's do another one."
Throughout the 1930s, the boys from Termite Terrace, Leon Schlesinger's low-budget animation studio, were hard at work, unleashing their irreverent imaginations one drawing at a time, hoping to create just another funny 7-minute short. But in 1940, almost by accident, one cartoon came along that would change the world of animation and the world forever.
Bugs Bunny evolved from Daffy Duck. The way it happened was Ben Hardaway, who was put on direction at that time, who was called Bugs Hardaway at that time, his nickname was Bugs, who wanted to do something like the Daffy Duck, that hoo-hoo character that bounced around on his head and all that, ran around the screen and around the edges of the screen. He said, "Well, I want to do a character like that, but I don't want to do Daffy Duck because that's Clampets, I guess." So he said, "I'll do the same thing, but I'll make him a rabbit."
Audiences loved that movie, that cartoon. When they were at the box office, they'd say, "When are we going to see more of that rabbit?" Like the box office had something to do with it.
They would get feedback from just trade papers, like Motion Picture Daily and things like that. They would get back to Warner Brothers and say, "They really loved that rabbit. They really laughed at him. Can you make more? We want more." And that's how Bugs lasted so long. And they didn't try to just force them down somebody's throat. Somebody had to like them first.
You're sure glad to get rid of that dope. That's what you think.
All kinds of fan letters kept coming into the studio about, when are we going to see more of that rabbit? That rabbit is so funny. So they decided, well, let's make another one.
He had a crazy rabbit, just as loony as Daffy Duck, just as loony as Daffy Duck. They began to feel that maybe this hunting formula was the thing, the trick. So they started to do a series of rabbit hunting cartoons.
Got a hunting license? But I haven't got one now.
My father, Mel Blanc, who would always wake me up in the morning with, "Me, what's up, no?" He would always do stuff like that. He got into the voice business because he loved doing voices.
Honest, Chief, I never done nothing to no one what never done nothing to me. Don't go off, half-cock. Put yourself in my place. I'm a married man with a family. Look.
The first rabbit they showed him was called Happy Hare or Happy Rabbit. It was called everything they could name it except Bugs Bunny because they hadn't thought of it at that time. And it had big buck teeth. So the voice that my dad had to come up with sounded like this. And if you hear the first Warner Brothers cartoons with Bugs, it's a very different voice for Bugs Bunny because it's like this, and he's got his teeth in the way, and it's got a really strange sound.
I'm going cuckoo. Here comes the choo-choo. I'm so goony, loony, toony, touched in the head. Please pass the ketchup. I think I'll go to bed.
There was a few of them made with that kind of a rabbit, a screwball rabbit, and was just a replay of Daffy Duck in a rabbit suit practically, until Tex Avery came along and gave it more of the rabbit that you have today.
Shh. Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits.
I was working with Tex. Well, of course, Tex did it. And Virgil Ross animated the whole thing. And he just said, we're gonna do this rabbit and the hunter. So I did him a rabbit and a hunter. Tex just wanted to do a new one that was totally different. You know, and personality mainly was the difference. What made Bugs.
Doggone you, old mean rabbit.
Tex Avery seems like everything just automatically was what he wanted. See? Most of everything he did was very individual. What I mean, I don't think he followed any particular pattern. He just had a lot on the ball that he wanted to bring out, and particularly his extreme gags. That was one of his things. I mean, he just used his own ideas about things and made them definitely Tex Avery. It wasn't anybody else's stuff.
They decided, hey, we better give this rabbit a name. So they were sitting around and trying to think of a name for this rabbit. And Tex Avery said, well, what about Jackie Rabbit? Nah, they didn't like that. And they were bantering all kinds of names around, and nobody seemed to be impressed. And they're in the story room, and they see all these model sheets. And the publicity gal was in there, and she sees Bugs Bunny. And she said, gee, how about Bugs Bunny? And Tex says, I don't like that name. That's a fuzzy-wuzzy name. She says, nevertheless, I'm going to see if the old man likes it. So she went to Leon Schlesinger's office, and she said, what do you think of Bugs Bunny? And he said, I like it. And that's how Bugs Bunny got his name.
Tex gave the character the line, "What's up, Doc?" which was an expression he used as a kid in school. This was an expression from Texas that they used to go around school going, hey, what's up, Doc? And so he just gave it to the character. So it would be a funny thing for him to say.
What's up, Doc? Shh, there's a rabbit down there, and I'm trying to catch him.
And Mel, of course, did the voice, and he based it on Arnold Stang, New York comedian, which is perfect, New York wise guy.
He showed me a picture of a little rabbit. He said, he's a tough little stinker, and we need a tough voice for him. So I said, why not? So I figured, which is the funniest, which is the toughest, Brooklyn or the Bronx? So I put the two of them together.
And that's how Bugs Bunny came out, Doc.
He was a little stinker, and still is, I guess.
It took 2 years for the metamorphosis to happen in Bugs, where he came with, "What's up, Doc?" and a different sound from the very early sounds that sounded like this, because he was trying to get the teeth out of the way.
I'll tell you why I can't eat carrots and talk at the same time. They get stuck in my throat. So I always save the Bugs Bunny's line, this "eat the carrot" and "What's up, Doc?" until the very end, because then I have to spit them out. I used to fill baskets full of spitting out carrots.
Yeah. Definitely necessary to use a carrot.
Yes, it's the only sound that'll make a sound like a carrot, is a real carrot. We tried potatoes, raw potatoes, everything. Celery, nothing works like a carrot.
What do you mean, rabbit? Rabbits. With big, long ears. Oh, like these? Yeah, and a little white, fluffy tail.
Like this?
Yup, and he hops around and around.
Oh, like this?
The reason I liked him, he was a different type of character than we'd had in the past. And working with Elmer Fudd, his first line that he ever uttered was with a little chomp of a carrot, and he says, "What's up, Jack?" And that set his entire character. He was always in command in the face of all types of dangers, even a double-barrel shotgun. He retained that character through all the years, the same type of person, or animal, or rabbit.
We just thought it was another cartoon, that was it. But immediately the studio realized it was something, it had something. We used to always run them for everybody when we got finished, and they'd kind of vote on it. And they knew there was something, they couldn't quite know what it was. Well, it was the personality and Mel's voice. And that's what made it. It was different. So actually, Mel and Tex and I created Bugs Bunny.
I think it's interesting in Bugs Bunny's longevity that he really became the character people recognize when he got toned down from being crazy. While the Ben Hardaway Bugs Bunnies are amusing, he's nuts in those as well, and so there isn't much of a distinction between him and the early Daffy Duck. And it wasn't until Tex Avery did A Wild Hare where he toned him down and made him a rabbit, you know, who was confident and was completely unfazed in the face of a gun with a New York accent yet. That's really what crystallized the character's personality for the public.
Even Tex didn't really understand what had happened with the first Bugs Bunny. It's easy to understand that if you look at Wild Hare and then look at the next one, the tortoise and the hare thing, you'll notice Bugs is the victim. The turtle assumes all of Bugs' characteristics, and Bugs becomes the victim. He becomes the Elmer Fudd. So it took 2 or 3 pictures for anybody to realize exactly what they were working with.
I tell you, it just don't make sense.
Once Tex Avery crystallized his character in The Wild Hare, I think audiences just found his sassy control of the situation just so heroic. Coolness in the face of danger, you know, with a blunderbuss rifle in his face, and he'd just take a chew on that carrot. And what's bothering you, Jack? You know, this is like all the other characters, like Daffy Duck would suddenly go, woohoo! And he was cool, you know, before the word cool was used the way we use it today.
And he had that connection. You just loved the guy. It's the same way Groucho Marx would do these asides to you, and you just feel a connection to the character on the screen. He was your guy. There was no pretense about him. There was no artifice. At times, Porky was a little stuck up, and Daffy was, you know, a little full of it. But Bugs was so honest to you all the time that you just had to love the guy.
Hey, you got a nickel? Hello, operator, give me walnut treat. Oh, that's you, Mert? How's every little thing?
Dad had always told us that one of the inspirations for Bugs Bunny was Clark Gable, and it happened one night, and where he's standing on the side of the road eating the carrot. Well, if you think of Clark Gable, what a star, what a character he was, how powerful, you get the feeling for what was behind Bugs Bunny.
Stick 'em up, or I'll blow your brains out.
Well, now that's mighty neighborly of you.
Bugs was possibly the first real wise guy cartoon character. Just as Daffy was the first screwy cartoon character, Bugs was the first wise guy. And that was a new idea.
He is a cool character. Tex Avery used to use that word. In other words, he's not a hot character, if you know what I mean. Daffy and Sylvester, the ones who are born losers because they embody all of the human failings, the 7 deadly sins, greed, lust, you know, all of those things, and always fall flat on their face. This is great comedy, whereas Bugs would do it to whatever enemy it was in the cartoon.
Say, you're a rabbit. I'm gonna drill you good.
Oh, okay, Doc, but wait just a minute, huh? You may fire when ready, Gridley.
I think Bugs is different than all of our characters, and that is that he's a comic hero. Well, nearly all comedians, in our cartoons too, nearly all the characters are comic losers. Elmer Fudd and Yosemite Sam and Daffy Duck, all the rest of them, with the possible exception of Pepe Le Pew and Tweety Bird. Tweety is not an aggressive character at all. Bugs isn't either until he's thwarted, until somebody tries to do him hurt.
If he had been too mean-spirited, he wouldn't have been embraced. There's a fine line to walk. I mean, he does some pretty mean things to Elmer and to some of his other adversaries, especially in those early cartoons. But there's something that's still funny about him, perhaps because his adversaries are such bozos. Maybe that's why. And he, very early on, broke that fourth wall, talking to the audience, winking at the audience, letting them in on the gag.
gruesome, isn't it?
That was a pretty novel idea, too.
Is there a doctor in the house? Is there a doctor in the house?
I'm a doctor.
What's up, Doc?
But as Bugs evolved, he evolved first and foremost as a character and a personality the audience wanted to relate to.
Gosh, ain't I a stinker?
He didn't evolve as a corporate symbol or as a spokesperson for any particular entity. He evolved as a character that we as an audience relate to and love to watch, and we love to laugh at him. I'm sure that the animators and directors of that era, when they started to hear audiences respond to Bugs, thought, oh, that's good, let's try this with him. Oh, that's great, if that worked, let's try this with him. And it's that excitement of saying, I found a new star. I found a young Julia Roberts or a young Tom Cruise or somebody that I can go in and capitalize on and try something with and try him in a new movie, in a new situation with a new character that eventually made Bugs cut through.
Now there's a delicious-looking rabbit.
He was so casual about being a star. All the major cartoon characters from the golden age of movies developed. Mickey, you can see Mickey Mouse develop from one to another, and you can see Bugs develop from one cartoon to another. Same with the other Warner's characters. In Bugs's case, he got more and more casual until it was almost incidental that he was a star, and I think audiences really appreciated that. You had to confront Bugs to get a story out of him, but he was all too willing to oblige.
Ah, my public, how they love me.
Bugs was a star, and audiences couldn't get enough. But his stardom was about to skyrocket as the country was plunged into World War II. America needed a hero, and we found one in that wascally wabbit from New York City.
Bugs Bunny was created in 1940, and by 1941, the end of 1941, we were in World War II, and the character was being really developed in those cartoons, those early cartoons.
Sorry, fellas. I can't play with you anymore. I got some important work to do. We will
What was great was Bugs was an all-American character. He was practically a kid from Brooklyn. He represented that scrappy feeling that we had at that time to get into the war and win it.
Bob Clampett once said, people these days have no concept before the days of television, when the only visual medium was the cinema. What an enormous impact on a giant screen somebody like Bugs Bunny's coolness in the face of an enemy was a phenomenon. And it just remained that way and has remained since.
Bugs was always a wiseacre character after Wild Hare, but the war kind of amped everything up. Bugs could do no wrong.
They developed Bugs into this hero type because he was a hero. And that's where Bugs became the most popular, was in the 40s period. And he became the most popular cartoon character not only in the 40s, but 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s into the 21st century. Bugs is still the most popular cartoon character in the world. He's a hero without being Superman or Mighty Mouse because he does it with his brain. And he's a tough guy with a heart of gold.
By the 40s, Bugs Bunny was the most popular short subject series in movies. And Disney, which was the leader and had that crown in the 30s, had lost it. And he'd lost it mainly because he had gone into features now, but Warner's was definitely the studio everybody was imitating, including Disney. Now everyone was doing Warner Brothers style humor cartoons, but Warner's was the leader.
Nobody was as funny or outrageous as that Wild Hare. And in the hands of his Warner Brothers directors, designers, and animators, his style was evolving. Everyone had their own ideas of how Bugs looked best.
Bugs, in the very beginning, looked a little bit different. In the old Bugs, he was different from, say, the 50s. As the years went by, Bugs matured a little bit in his design. And now, of course, they've copied the same one.
Animators, as far as I know, and including me, weren't in on much of anything until they got to our stage where it was all laid out and everything, and then we got the work and explained what do we want to do from this point to this point and hook it up with the other animators, and that's what we did. We all got a copy of what the characters going to look like, and we tried to keep them looking as near alike so that we all made them approximately the same. We usually could tell the difference of who did what, but I don't think the general public could.
When I went to work there, they already were doing Bugs, but each unit did him differently. Eventually, it did become a contest between the four units, so they decided well, we got to organize this so he's not this crazy. So they got Bob McKimson to draw the model sheet. Then we use that for whoever's working on a film. Then we animate it like that to see what it looked like.
My father created the definitive way Bugs Bunny looks is today. Because originally the rabbit was kind of a hunched over rabbit that halfway hopped. And he changed them in effect of about 1943, as I say, to the way he looks today. And of course, he was, you know, always a favorite of my father's.
I love to see old Bob McKimson draw. Pick up the pencil, put on the paper, and then go like this. The feet, that's it. That's right, he drew it. But it's a terrible drawing. But he liked it, and everybody else said, no, that's right. That's a good Bugs Bunny.
When the Clampett unit had Bob McKimson do his famous Bugs Bunny model sheet, it really was that crystallized Bugs Bunny that everybody knows. Somehow McKimson's drawings really caught the spirit of the character and how to turn him around and how to give him expression in such a very, very influential way that it influenced the entire studio. I think he was in large part responsible in early Avery cartoons and in Bob Clampett cartoons of really making the characters feel real. Really making them feel dimensional.
Like we would talk, gee, I love working on Bugs, we'd say. But we haven't done a Bugs for a long time, and I miss it. And so then old Bob Clampett said, well, we're working on one. And he'd come up right away with a story that would satisfy the animators. It's like everything. You know, you work for your group. Although we were very small little units, we worked to please each other, put it up on the board, and then if we got a good reaction, then we knew we had something good.
We followed each other. We picked what looked and what we felt was Bugs more out of each other's pictures, and we'd meet about it. When we felt that we got off base, we'd talk about it. And we discussed what we thought was that we were getting off of the character. I think we reminded each other. Clampett was included, and whoever was included in making Bugs Bunny. We always refer back to the model sheet, for instance, the look of the character, and also talk about what he did, whether we were out of line of the personality. We kept taking from each other the best of each cartoon and added to that, and ended up with the latter ones, which were more of the character in style and personality and looks.
We try to do the same thing, but each one of us, again, did a little bit different. And that's the way it went.
A buzzard is two-faced. You naughty, naughty boy.
It's often said that Bugs had 5 fathers, not just one. And I think that collective, collaborative energy that went into that character helped shape him to be the extraordinary character he ended up being, the #1 cartoon character in the world.
Some of my best scenes. Okay, Smokey, roll 'em.
If you look carefully, there's probably 3 or 4 different kinds of Bugs Bunnies with the Clampett era. And then you look at the way that Chuck handled Bugs, you look at the way Frizz handled them, and you look at the way that McKimson's did, that they're entirely different. I mean, from the professional standpoint, maybe the layman isn't going to notice these subtleties, but they're there, believe me.
Clampett's Bugs, for example, is much wilder and much screwier than Chuck Jones's Bugs, who's much more refined, genteel sort of rabbit than Clampett's is, who'll, grab somebody and smack a big wet one on his lips. He'll do, in many ways, more devious things than I think other people's Bugs would, is when he invades Elmer's dream to get him to re-sign with Warner's in one cartoon.
Billions and billions of rabbits. Where were they all coming from? From me, Doc. I'm multiplying, see? I'm multiplying.
Bugs dressing Elmer up in a wig and long green gown and high-heeled shoes is not something that Chuck Jones or Friz Freleng or even Tex Avery would have done to Elmer. But in Clampett's particular universe, where pretty much anything can happen, it fits.
Back again, eh? Well, if you can't take a hint, I'll have to get tough. And another thing, stop breathing in my cup.
McKimson's Bugs was based on the stuff he'd done for Clampett, which was a much more aggressive version of the character. His style was really bold, and he favored big, lummoxy kind of characters.
I've seen you before. I never forget a face. But in your case, I'll make an exception.
Even his version of Bugs was kind of lummoxy. Bugs was heavier. He had almost a pot belly. His shoulders looked broader. He was a strong-looking character than what Friz and Chuck did. Their Bugs was more of a timid woodland creature that rebelled, you know.
All my films, I tried to have the feeling that he was put upon, that he was minding his own business, and really not interested in being an aggressive character until somebody comes along and tries to do him hurt. And that would apply equally to The Rabbit of Seville or What's Opera Doc or any of the rest of them. I think the reason for that, in my mind, was that Bugs is left alone. If he just went out and bedeviled people without any provocation, he would become a bully, because he's just too damn strong.
Oh, for shame! Just look at your fingernails. My, I'll bet you monsters lead interesting lives. I said to my girlfriend just the other day, gee, I'll bet monsters are interesting, I said. The places you must go and the things you must see, my stars.
With Bugs, you really have to find out where those tiny weaknesses are in order to make him human. Like in the bullfight picture, he had to make as many knocks. I always tried to have him make a few knocks, because again, in order to maintain sympathy, you better not have him be pure, because nobody's that way.
Listen, Playboy, what's the idea of crashing in at the middle of the night and disturbing honest rabbit slumber?
Of course, over the periods of years, all of us developed a certain persona, but we were sort of kicking him back and forth, playing volleyball with Bugs until it took about 8 years to get what he is now, and he stayed pretty much the same, although Bob always drew him a little differently. Clampett drew him very differently. Bob tended to be a little more physical in the way he got him. But by sending him back and forth, we learned from each other, and then he sort of emerged, as I said, into what I felt was a sort of a combination of quiet living rabbit down in a hole, and somebody comes along and tries to disturb him. I guess mine was more intellectual, which I don't know is good or bad, but at least I like to have him get away, by verbal means.
Oh, I get it. Trick or treat. I didn't realize it was Halloween already. Okay, here's some candy for you, and here's your treat. Hey, swell get up you got, kids.
Chuck Jones liked gags that made Bugs sound very, very smart. So in Rabbit Hood, for example, Bugs is spouting Britishisms, to the Sheriff of Nottingham.
Lo, the king approacheth.
The king? Where?
There, or yon flowered bank.
Your Majesty.
It takes some writing to do that, to parody British speech, that was a little stilted, and make it funny. And I think Chuck loved those kinds of gags. They also liked gags that referred to things that weren't of the greatest popular culture. What's Opera Doc being an example. I don't know how many people had actually seen an opera that saw What's Opera Doc, but they were pretty sure they knew it was being pilloried.
Kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit, kill the wabbit.
Kill the wabbit?
Chuck was a more sophisticated kind of a guy, and he started educating Bugs. He started using words that the average these and those guys don't even know, but Chuck knew. And he started injecting those into the character itself, and that we've had to pull back from that. Mine and Chuck, that we had to get back to the these and those characters.
Frizz's first Bugs Bunny cartoon was Hiawatha's Rabbit Hunt. It was probably the second cartoon where Bugs actually had his New York voice.
Hey, what's cooking, Chief? Something smells good. Hey, what are you having for dinner?
Rabbit stew.
Rabbit? Boy, I sure do love rabbit. Rabbit?
And I think Frizz always wanted to keep Bugs New Yorkie, even if he was out in the desert.
Man, dig this crazy beach. Must be low tide.
Chuck had that cute touch to his
Bugs Bunny's, Frizz's Bugs I found very, very humorous.
I dashed you to step across this line.
I'm a steppin'. I hate you.
It was funny because at the end of my 6 years with Chuck, and when I segued over to Frizz's unit to work on his bugs, he came to me and says, remember, you came from Chuck's unit. We don't do bugs the way Chuck does. So I had to get Frizz's Bugs Bunny model sheets and learn bugs all over.
I had to do 5 Bugs Bunnies. Chuck had to do 5, and Bob McKesson did 3. I'm talking about the late 50s, really. But that's when we created all the characters we could handle. We had 14 characters there. So if I got an idea with Bugs and Yosemite Sam, because when I created Yosemite Sam, then I used Yosemite Sam against Bugs. Chuck would use whatever character he wanted, an adversary, against it, but he never used Sam, neither did Bob.
Why you? Hey now! Cut that out, or say wise guy. Oh yeah! Yeah! Philadelphia! Says a friend. Yes. No.
The writers of these cartoons are always given short shrift in history. Writers like Ted Pierce, it really was part of the foundation of the tone of Warner's cartoons, what made them different from other cartoons, their unique combination of highbrow and lowbrow humor. Writers like Warren Foster with his unique insertions of comic understatement. And then there's Michael Maltese. Of course, Maltese's gag ideas for Chuck Jones were legendary. Evidence of these storymen's work is never directly seen on camera, but those little story sketches they do, unceremoniously thumbtacked onto the wall or onto a bulletin board, really constituted the first visualizations of the narratives. Plus, these guys were funny. Frizz called them comedians that could draw a little bit, and that's about it.
As far as the gags go, they got an awful lot of material from vaudeville, an awful lot of material from radio that was common at the time, and from screen comedy. When Bugs Bunny says, "He don't know me very well, do he?" That's Red Skelton. Bugs has co-opted those phrases.
He don't know me very well, do he?
And it's interesting that the radio programs hardly exist anymore, but everybody associates those lines with Bugs Bunny.
If I do it, I get a whipping. I do it.
Everywhere you go, everybody knows Bugs Bunny. They don't know Mel Blanc. But they know Bugs Bunny, and everybody knows that.
Mel Blanc gave him a great character. This, what's up, Doc? The way he said it. And, what's up, Doc?
What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc? What's up, Doc?
We're watching him, seeing recording session, and then we try to animate it just like that. Caricature, whole Mel doing his what's up, Doc?
What's up, Doc, Chris?
See, they all were the same character. Daffy Duck was this. They all were the same character, the same undisciplined character. It's just that the voice of the rabbit had something in it that just separated from the duck.
Me, be glad to, Doc. This is the way the rabbit talks.
Oh, he was a nice, very nice guy. He didn't want to record from typewritten words. He'd read the thing and then he'd throw it away. He wanted to go by the storyboard. But he'd set the storyboard up and record from that because it gave him a better mental picture of the characters.
Mel never saw the pictures until about an hour before we recorded them. We'd call him over, and then I'd take my drawings and go through the entire picture. And then I would go through the film, and I'd do Bugs Bunny, and he'd do Daffy Duck. And then I'd do Daffy Duck, and he'd do Bugs Bunny. See, obviously, it was impossible for him to go from character to character because Daffy was speeded up, and Bugs wasn't, of course. So he had to do it that way, but all the directors worked that way.
Hey, now, wait a minute, sister. Now, take it easy. You got me wrong. Just a passing fancy. Hey, it's purely platonical, honest. But I feel like a sister to you. Hey, you read any good books lately? Now cut it out. Stop it. Hey.
You know, in all these 45 years, I have never had one complaint. Anybody said, I don't like that voice. They all seem to be my friends anyway.
We got along great over the years. He was a wonderful role model for me. When I did Pete Puma, Mel Blanc, which Bugs Bunny was trying to teach his nephew how to catch a puma. And Mel Blanc. See, I say Mel Blanc when I mean Bugs Bunny, but what's the difference?
How many lumps do you want?
Oh, 3 or 4.
How would Bugs Bunny describe Mel Blanc? How would Bugs Bunny describe...
Well, let's see now. Bugs would say, oh, Blanc, he's a genius. Oh, this guy can do anything. Hey, you show him a character and he'll give it a voice. And, he's also an antique watch collector. And, he's a kind of nice guy, as natural as possible.
Yeah.
He's not one of them egotistical jerks like Daffy Duck. And, that's about it. Just a regular guy.
The special relationship Mel Blanc had with Bugs Bunny was undeniable, and their unique bond would later save Mel's life after a serious car accident left him in a coma.
There was this brain specialist. I had a triple skull fracture, and I was unconscious and didn't know whether I'd ever come out of it. And he would come in every day and he'd say, how are you feeling today, Mel? And I wouldn't answer him, because I didn't hear him. But he got an idea. And one day he came in, and Noel and my wife Estelle were in the room at the same time. And he came in and he said, how are you today, Bugs Bunny? And I answered him. I said,
just fine, Doc. How are you?
and he knew by this that I was going to come out of it. Because I personally was dead, but my characters were still alive. And he knew that I was going to come out of it. That doesn't sound like a true story, but it's true.
After 20 years of superstardom, Bugs Bunny was a singular sensation, finding his way into radio, comic books, toy stores, hit records, and even sharing the silver screen with Doris Day. Bugs was everywhere.
They ended up doing like 170 theatrical Bugs Bunny cartoons, something like that. And obviously they went all over the place to do stories.
Well, here we are, Pismo Beach, and all the clams we can eat. And let's see now, True Azusa, turn left at Cucamonga till you hit Los Angeles. Hey, I must be in Paris. Miami Beach at last. Then straight out Wilshire Boulevard to the La Brea Tar Pits. This don't look like the Coachella Valley to me. Don't look much like Los Angeles to me. I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque.
And they put him in fairy tales, they put him in historical situations, they put him in all time periods, and they had him in the present. But that's the thing, Bugs Bunny was so universal. He could fit into all those places, or he could bring the American spirit into all of those places, the American point of view to old England, or down under, or the North Pole, or outer space.
Bugs Bunny to Earth! Bugs Bunny to Earth! Come in, Earth! Urgent! Urgent! SOS! Roger! Wilco! Over.
Crumbly crunchies are the best. Look delicious on your vest.
There's a wonderful thing that happens with a superstar like Bugs Bunny. These characters are so well defined sometimes, and they're so funny that the minute you put them into an interesting situation, you know something interesting is going to happen. So now you take one of these hoary stories we've heard millions of times, like Little Red Riding Hood or The Three Little Bears, and you say, we're going to put Bugs Bunny in it. Well, right there, we know there's going to be a conflict. We know he's going to shred this story for us and make it funny and turn it upside down. We don't know what he's going to do, but we know that that story is going to get savaged and beaten up by Bugs. And we look forward to that because we're kind of sick of the Three Bears story. We've heard it all our lives, and we want someone to do something to it.
Yeah, I know we need a double on the Bugs Bunny picture. But where can I get anyone stupid enough to take the job?
Okay, boss, hang up. A star is born, and that star is me.
I'll call you right back.
Bugs had outwitted and outsmarted Elmer Fudd, Yosemite Sam, the Tasmanian Devil, and even Marvin the Martian. But his favorite partner in comedy had to be that hard-luck duck, Daffy.
By the 1950s, Chuck Jones had modified the personality of Daffy Duck into this egotistical foil character and had done some solo cartoons with Daffy in this new persona. It was moving away from that wacky woohoo personality that he had originally.
Goodbye, Rabbit. You're gonna be a falling star.
The wit between Daffy and Bugs Bunny, just like it was with Sylvester and Tweety, they clicked with the writers, combination of one-on-one. They came up with the idea of making Daffy Duck a greedy duck. He was always out for the easy buck. Bugs Bunny then became a straight man. He was the cool, relaxed guy, nothing fazed him.
I'm sick of people taking bows for my talent. Now do your own dance. I challenge you. Dance if you're not a coward.
It just happened that Mike Maltese came up with a funny gag with Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck, and it was successful. And then maybe another cartoon later, Mike Maltese resurrected it and said, hey, why don't we go back and do something similar?
What they did was they put Daffy into the mix with Bugs and Elmer, and it was really a great winning combination because you had Bugs versus Elmer versus Daffy, all of them out for themselves.
You know what I'll do with that gun, Doc.
In Chuck's hands, Bugs was becoming less like Daffy and a little more assured, a little more, I'm the guy who's in control of the situation. And so as those two characters were evolving that way with Chuck and Michael's collaboration, it probably seemed natural to put them together and see what happened, you know, with Daffy heading in one direction of self-survival and Bugs heading in another direction of nothing phases him, and Elmer being the hapless dupe.
Look, Doc, are you looking for trouble? I'm not a stewing wabbit. I'm a fricasseeing wabbit.
And there's a lot of interplay between the characters that really doesn't take much action at all, but it's fun to listen to.
Would you like to shoot me now or wait till you get home? Shoot him now. Shoot him now. You keep out of this. He doesn't have to shoot you now. Ha! That's it. Hold it right there. Pronoun trouble. It's not he doesn't have to shoot you now. It's he doesn't have to shoot me now. Well, I say he does have to shoot me now. So shoot me now.
The other thing that was really fun about the series is how humiliated can Daffy get? I mean, that's really the basis of all the jokes. How many times can his bill be blown off his head, and in how many different directions and how many different compositions?
Is he still there? Still lurking about?
It really set the tone for how people recognize the characters now.
What? That rabbit's name over mine? I'm the star. I'll just see about this.
Bugs Bunny had that confidence that, I don't know about you, but I certainly didn't have as a kid, let alone a teenager. Chuck Jones always said something to the effect that, you know, Bugs Bunny was who he wanted to be and Daffy Duck was who he was. And that's very true. I mean, Daffy isn't stupider than Bugs, but his lack of confidence and his jealousy and hatred of Bugs Bunny's confidence makes him shoot himself in the foot every time.
Oh, no, you stupid rabbit! Like this!
No, I'm too young to die. Please let me in.
Hey, this scene ought to get me the Academy Award.
As celebrated as Bugs was, he couldn't catch a break at the Academy Awards. But after nearly 20 years and 2 previous nominations, he finally struck Oscar gold with the hit short, Nighty Night Bugs.
I almost think Nighty Night Bugs won the Academy Award because the Academy wanted to honor Bugs Bunny. Bugs Bunny hadn't won an Oscar. Warner Brothers cartoons have won Oscars, Tweety, Speedy Gonzales, Pepe Le Pew. But Bugs Bunny, their biggest star, had never won one, and they submitted a cartoon in 1957, Nighty Night Bugs, which was a very funny cartoon with Yosemite Sam as the knight. And I think the Academy just said, Bugs Bunny is a classic. We have to honor it.
Now, let's see if I remember. Head down, left arm stiff.
When Frisk got the Oscar for 99 Bugs, he had all of us take a picture with the Oscar. He hired a professional photographer so he could do this. And we all stood there with our Oscar. And that's when I found out that they're heavy.
Bugs was on top of the world. Having conquered the big screen, Chuck, Frizz, and Robert McKimson would guide Bugs on his next great adventure, television. When Warner Brothers debuted The Bugs Bunny Show in 1960, they had no idea how much TV would change the course of Bugs' life forever.
The Bugs Bunny Show, which was destined for ABC, we started the actual production of it when I came down to take over the division. We made a pilot, and all we really had to do to put the show together, the pilot, was to do the bridging material and do a main and end title and some new music. Da 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 da.
You know what heights we'll hit. On with the show, this is it.
I believe it got numbers just as good as the Flintstones did in that first season anyway. It immediately, was a success.
And now, that Oscar-winning rabbit, Bugs Bunny.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The fans were so thick out front, I was afraid I would be late. But thanks to my, guest stars, I made it with a breeze.
With theatrical cartoons losing their popularity, Warner Brothers finally closed Termite Terrace in 1962, freeing Chuck Jones and Friz Freleng to start their own independent animation companies. But that didn't stop Bugs, and his primetime success on ABC led to a new time slot for the Bugs Bunny Show.
So Bugs Bunny going on to Saturday morning really just furthered a relationship that his audience already had with these cartoons. The kid audience was wiser about the importance of these cartoons and loved them more deeply than the general public already.
The Saturday morning version of the Bugs Bunny Show stayed on the air for at least 40 years. That's an unusual thing. It's hard to believe. It was never in syndication. It never played local channels. It played Saturday morning under different names. The Bugs Bunny Show, the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner Hour, Bugs and Tweety Show. Did it change things? Yeah. It made a whole bunch of us love Bugs Bunny.
Songs. It's pronounced Faint Flames. The musical number we are performing tonight is The Carnival of the Animals by Camille Saint-Saëns.
Chuck Jones and Friz Freleng actually returned to Warner Brothers to work on these characters and work on more films in the late 70s into the early 80s, making compilation feature films, special cartoons for TV.
What's up, Duke?
It's interesting how Chuck and Friz both had a sort of longing to get back to the Warner's universe, even though they were removed themselves. Their hearts stayed, both Chuck and Frizz's hearts stayed with the Warner's work. I mean, they really did. I think they both thought they did their best work at Warner Brothers. I think they sincerely believed that, and of course they were right.
That was a real highlight. And they made movies and TV specials and great new shorts, paving the way for a whole new generation of artists and animators and voice actors, directors. They love Bugs Bunny. They love the Looney Tunes.
What's up, Doc?
Well, Bugs, we're announcing the nominees for Best Achievement in an Animated Short Film.
Well, I thought I was going to present the award for Best Actress.
Well, look, Bugs, people expect a guy like you to give out this kind of award, so let's just defer to the Academy.
Well, all right. It's going to be a long night.
Bugs found two of his biggest fans in producer Steven Spielberg and director Robert Zemeckis. And when they made their groundbreaking animated feature, Disney's Who Framed Roger Rabbit, they invited him to share the screen with his crosstown rival, Mickey Mouse. It was the last time Mel Blanc voiced Bugs at the movies.
There was one wonderful day when we went to Beverly Hills and visited Mel Blanc's house. And his son Noel answered the door, and we went in his beautiful home. And out of the back room comes Mel Blanc. And of course, he's a guy I had seen for years on, television shows with Bob Hope and Bing Crosby and things. Here's this guy comes in and says, "Hi, Don, how you doing?" And he sounds like Mel Blanc. And I feel so honored to be able to say that he did those voices for us.
Me, what's up, Doc? Jumping without a parachute? Kinda dangerous, ain't it?
Yeah, you could get killed.
You guys got a spare?
Bugs does.
Yeah?
Yeah, but I don't think you want it.
I do. Give it to me.
Gee, better let him have it, Bugs.
Okay, Doc. Whatever you say. Here's the spare.
Thank you.
Certainly in Roger Rabbit, to be able to have a scene with Bugs Bunny and Bugs Bunny and Mickey Mouse together, or Daffy and Donald together, it was really a celebration of the animation of that day, and to be able to work with Mel Blanc.
Poor fella.
Yeah, ain't I a stinker?
It was a great time to kind of go back and really look at the work of some of the great artists that made Looney Tunes and Disney cartoons and MGM and Max Fleischer and all those studios, and celebrate it, revisit it.
Steven Spielberg loved working with Bugs Bunny so much in Roger Rabbit that he wanted to continue doing so. Warner Brothers wanted to work with Steven Spielberg on such an idea of reviving Looney Tunes, so a younger generation of Looney Tunes appeared in Tiny Toons Adventures, which also had cameos by Bugs Bunny.
By the way, I love your show. And Warner Brothers paid me to say that.
Bugs was back and starring in new theatrical shorts for the first time in 25 years. Chuck Jones paid a final farewell to the character he helped create, as well as to his old friend Friz Freleng in his final Looney Tunes cartoon, From Here to Eternity.
The fun of making a new Bugs Bunny cartoon, it's just indescribable. It's like making these new shorts, particularly at a time when shorts were not in theaters, and people wanted them in theaters, or you could feel it. It was in the air.
For shame, Doc. Using live ammunition on a movie set.
Well, I thought it would be a great big birthday surprise if after 51 and a half years of trying, I finally blasted you.
Bugs was on every channel. Bugs was in the movie theaters. Merchandising was exploding. Warner Brothers had studio stores all over America, retaining the legacy of the original cartoons and the characters and Bugs Bunny through the merchandise, which was quite clever. Bugs Bunny is seen in the best possible light. And when they even used him in commercials, they were so good, the commercial inspired a movie. It inspired Space Jam.
Space Jam was an intergalactic team-up with two of the world's biggest icons, Bugs Bunny and NBA superstar Michael Jordan. The animated blockbuster was a box office smash, and Bugs scored a whole new generation of fans.
Hi, I'm Michael Jordan, and I got to know Bugs pretty well during our movie Space Jam.
Great speech and all, Doc. You had him riveted. But didn't you forget something?
What?
Your secret stuff.
The longevity of Bugs, I think a lot has to go with his diet. I mean, carrots must be very healthy for you. He looks really good. When I was a kid, I watched him. He's just as lovable now as he was when I was a kid. What's going on here?
Why, Michael? I thought you'd never ask. You see, these aliens come from outer space, and they want to make us slaves in their theme park. What do we care? They're little, so we challenge them to a basketball game. But then they show up, and they ain't so little. They're huge! We need to beat these guys.
Everybody's got their own idea of the characters, and the voice guys all have their take of the characters. Who sounds better, who did what, is not really important to me, as it is that there was a Mel Blanc who set the template and created a standard that all others would be judged, not on how well they could do him, but how well they took the lessons, like the rules of the universe were laid out there, and how you go off and do your own thing with that kind of spark.
Bugs?
Mike?
Stay out of trouble.
You know I will.
Bugs thrived throughout the 1990s, ultimately leading to another feature, which I think is hilarious. One of the best things they ever did with the characters, Looney Tunes Back in Action.
So the question is, how can I help you reposition your brand identity? Answer, we team you up with a hot female co-star.
Usually, I play the female love interest.
Hello, my baby. Hello.
You don't really get that many opportunities in life to work with characters that you grew up with, that you really care about, and that you are hoping that you're going to be the best interpreter for, as opposed to somebody else who might not care as much. And so even though this really was a pretty difficult, complicated picture, in the end, I got to make a Daffy Duck Bugs Bunny movie. And that sort of outshines all the rest of it.
Pointillism, a technique of using individual dots of pigment which, taken together, make an image.
Oh, Quad.
I think when you go to the movies, you should learn something.
It's hard being the voice of any great characters like this, I have to add, because I have to try to summon the same kind of qualities that Mel had as an actor and as a voice creator when I work, because if I lose track of the thoughts that he must have had in order to deliver lines a certain way, I'll get lost.
Well, it's 5 o'clock somewhere.
It's more than a maintenance job. It's more than just imitations. I have to think as much as I can, like Mel and like Chuck and the others would like me to, because it's required in order to maintain the quality.
Well, Dave, you achieved your goal of being a hero. Yep. But you didn't achieve your goal of getting me back in your stupid movie. Aha!
Cut. Britt, that's a wrap.
Remind me to get a new agent, will ya? Oh, thanks.
As Bugs entered the 21st and a half century, he found himself a mass media megastar. He was on television, starring in Baby Looney Tunes and the Looney Tunes Show. He was on the internet, in video games, and even on smartphones.
Warner's has tried several revivals for Cartoon Network that have been a lot of fun, but the latest version of the new Looney Tunes, the Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max, are fantastic.
What you doing there, Doc?
I'm arm wrestling this here rabbit.
Oh, yeah? You gonna win?
Of course I'm gonna win.
Okay. I guess I'll bet on you then, Doc.
Yeah, bet on me. Always bet on arm wrestling Sam, 'cause I always win.
It's a real throwback to the mindset, to the thinking of Bugs Bunny from his beginning, from right at the very, very beginning, the 1941-42 period of Bugs Bunny, where he's his zaniest.
Confidentially, folks, this ain't my voice rodeo. This looks like a job for Super Rabbit. Whoop, pardon me, wrong costume.
Bugs was recently voted the world's most popular cartoon character, and I think it's deserved because Bugs is always in charge. Bugs always knows what's going on, and Bugs always wins, and so it's kind of hard to think of any other cartoon character that would give a kid that kind of, identification. Do you want to be a Daffy Duck and have an anvil fall on your head every 5 minutes? No. But Bugs almost never has an anvil fall on his head because he's too smart.
You know, I'm so smart sometimes it almost frightens me.
So the trick is to be the smartest cartoon character in the room, and I think that's what Bugs has always been.
It's like I always said, there's no such thing as just sitting down and making a great character. It doesn't happen. It does happen when you're not trying, Nobody ever figured out Bugs, just another cartoon.
This looks like a job for the Masked Avenger. But since he ain't around, I guess I'll have to take care of it myself.
Number one character in the 20th century. That's pretty good. By accident.
Bugs and Daffy and Yosemite Sam and the Tasmanian Devil, they're classics. Older people grew up with them, young people grew up with them, and they still see them on television. Baby Looney Tunes said, I'm still doing Granny. And they've got Tweety and Sylvester and all the wonderful characters that are just going to go on forever.
Stop steaming up my tail!
40 years ago, we felt that if our pictures would last 3 years, we'd be doing all right. And to have them alive and that people consider them and like them at this time, I say it's absurd because I certainly can't expect anything like that. As Frizz says, it's wonderful and completely unexpected.
I think Bugs Bunny, with Mel's voice and the animation and the situations we put him in, were successful. Why? I can't explain why. If I could analyze it, I'd do it again. I can't analyze what makes them successful.
From A Wild Hare to What's Opera Doc to Space Jam: A New Legacy with a little chomp of a carrot and a simple What's up, Doc? Part Brooklyn, part Bronx, like me. Always cool and always in command, he's the tough little stinker and comic hero we all dream about being. Bugs Bunny is the greatest cartoon character of all time.
Me. What's up, Doc?
Ain't I a stinker? And that's the end.
Return, my love. A longing burns deep inside me.
Return, my love. I want you always beside me.
Love like ours must be
made for you and for me. Return, won't you return, my love? For my love is yours. Ah, well, we almost had a romantic ending.